not to treat a flexible candidate lightly, by asking questions like, why were you on a contract? Why did you have a contract only for 6 months? Or why didn't you get absorbed after the 6-month contract? These questions might put the person in front of you in doubt, probably. So can we say that we can start there to actually change the mindset of the people who are interviewing these flexible employees, to make them feel good, to get rid of the stigma of casual employment and get in interim management per se?
Sure.
Yeah, I think it's a valid point. My belief is nothing is absolute. I think it's a continuum, and there are different organizations in different levels of maturity, as also the interviewers in different levels of maturity. Some interviewers who are perhaps experiencing this for the first time may have those questions on their mind, because you need to understand from where they're coming from. They're worried about having spent that time on that individual, and the individual leaves at the end of 3 months, 6 months, 1 month for a better placement, for just maybe a lower paying job, but that has the security of full time. So that's kind of their perspective. I agree there is a bit of sensitization on the part of the interviewers also to recognize, but I think it's a market maturity thing as well. If you go, for example, I've lived and worked in the US, where it's completely the reverse. The contingent workers make a lot more money than your full-time person makes. And I don't think the question ever gets asked that why did you not get confirmed the last time? Because that's by choice. There are things that come along with it, and very highly skilled people only want to work on a contingent basis because just as the nature of the beast. We are relatively young, both country, the markets and the industry, so it'll take us some time. That's why I said I'm an optimist. Things are getting better, they're not getting worse.
Thank you so much. I think flexi staffing very clearly demonstrates a convergence of needs. Needs of employers to be able to get employees for shorter duration just when they require it, to manage peaks and demands, and even for today's youth who are actually looking at an opportunity to create an opening balance. So flexi staffing pretty much manages to address both these needs. That we would, over a period of time, see convergence in aspirations, see convergence in wages, hopefully. We're very close. There are actually very little difference between permanent and temporary jobs in various roles and functions in today's time. So I hope you've had an interactive session. I hope some of your questions have been answered, and if they've not been, I think the panelist is available post-lunch, during lunch, to take your questions. Thank you so much, and thank you, gentlemen. It was really nice being here in the session.
Thank you for the wonderful session. May I now request Mr. R.P. Yadav, Board Member, Indian Staffing Federation, to present the mementos to the panelists. Mr. Prashant Bhatnagar. Mr. Vikas Gupta. Mr. Biplab Banerjee. And Mr. Alok Shupurkar. And why not? And to Rituparna Chakraborty, please.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So, allow me to invite Mr. Shyam Sundar, Vice President for HCM Ramco Systems, for his presentation on software for staffing industry. Thank you.
So while that presentation is actually coming up, I've got that most enviable speaker slot, which is between you and lunch. So bear with me for about 10 minutes while I just go through this narration on software in this particular industry. Actually, I was reading a magazine some time ago which spoke about the most complex job that is actually being executed on as we know it. And apparently, it's about coming up with a cost model to predict what it will take to mine metal from asteroids. Now, this is the job. We're talking about mining metal from asteroids, and apparently you get a very good pay for if you're able to predict what the cost model will be like. But after coming here and listening to the problems of this industry, I've changed my mind. I think you have very significant problems, and we all know that software actually plays a very modest role in this big picture of being able to create the apprentices, much less being able to predict the costs of what these apprentices will actually be in about 5 years from now. So having said that it's a modest role, and the theme being flexibility, flexibility to me is like in two styles. One is flexibility with a backbone, and the other is flexibility without a backbone. Now, talking about the positive side to flexibility, software understands flexibility when the sheet of paper comes with perforations. Software does not understand a plain sheet of paper. And so that's the extent of the role that software can actually play in solving the industry problems. It's more about how it enables the various players in the industry and how it actually brings the industry together. So having said that, what does this picture actually remind you of? Any guesses from the audience? Exactly. That's pretty much it, isn't it? What software is really actually doing is ensuring that your business data is not shared through Chinese whispers. Don't play games with your Chinese whispers. And apart from that, I think it also plays another very important element in the recent economic model of the cloud, simply because one thing which the customer does is they pass on their inefficiencies to you. You in turn have to pass it on to the software. And there has to be some kind of a match in the flow. So if your cash flows are going to be based upon what you bill to clients, then the way we charge you should also match that. And I think that's where the cloud actually plays a significant role, because it's a month-on-month subscription fee as opposed to the vertical investments into IT of yesterday. So I think in the broad picture, there is some degree of problem that we actually solve by knowing your issues, knowing your problems, and actually working with you. And we'll take a deeper look at the whole picture. So what is SRP for? Services Requirements Planning is actually a software variant of ERP. It stands on top of the ERP actually, and I explain why. When your billing actually depends upon your people and their timesheets. And more often than not, what is actually needed is a smooth flow of data which ensures that accountants are not calling up account managers and asking them questions about whether the invoice should be raised, whether the client will shout if the invoice is raised, and whether the work has been validated and things like that. So these are the kind of problems that you typically face. Can I bill the client for so many hours? What is the kind of, is it a flat fee? Is it a, say for example, a one-time fee that I should be? Pay is also very complex, isn't it? You pay employees a certain salary or a rate, then you also have to pay them for, say, various kinds of reimbursements, various other kinds of allowances that they're actually allowed in perquisites. It's actually a very complex process. It's not as if the finance process can run in isolation, the payroll process can run in isolation, and the client billing process can run in isolation. All three have to come together, and I think that's where the integration makes a lot of sense. What this is really showing you is that ERP versus SRP picture. What ERP was all about was best practices, cost savings, things like that. So that's what it would do. For example, you could match an invoice with a purchase request on the purchase side. You could match an invoice with the sales order on the sales side. So that's the kind of things that it would do. Best practices, tell your client what's available and all that. So it is essentially a cost efficiency model. Whereas if you take the case of SRP, the text is somehow not showing on that, but what it does is the red box that you see here actually is the client taking over the whole practice. The client is driving the system, essentially. Everything is centered around the SLA that you actually sign with the particular client. And starting from employee payroll, all the way till the invoicing process, everything is validated with the client. And I think that's the key difference. Going forward, how do you actually realize the IT promise? And all of you would be at various stages of readiness when it comes to IT. Some of you could be running informal systems, running your entire operations out of Excel spreadsheets. Some of you others could be doing a collage. That is, you could be buying your services from a variety of players. This is not very uncommon because somebody talked about compliance a little while ago. And getting the compliance from one vendor is often a myth. It really doesn't happen, right? It's very difficult. So you need to get your compliance from various places. Perhaps you're running a collage. Perhaps you're doing the binder technique, where you actually buy all these services but interact through one portal and one reporter system into the whole IT universe. The last is you have one ERP implemented for, say, the financials application perhaps, and then you have integrated a lot of third-party systems into this financials backbone for reporting purposes. The last is the customer-driven system, where every accountability and every drive within the system is actually based upon what the client has to say. They have an opportunity to articulate and drive the system forward. So given this particular kind of a move, whichever stage you are, it's always a complete transformation is possible, and it's kind of what happens in this particular industry. So here I'm giving you three industry complexities and technologies which sit behind it. Today, when you capture employee information, you're not just capturing employee information. Like my own favorite correlation to this is, you're almost like a doctor for the employees, in the sense that doctors maintain your medical records, you guys maintain employee records, right? But you need to match that with client requirements. That's where I think the additional challenge actually comes in from. So client parameters, contract renewal, domain, minimum wages, insurance, so many different kinds of things that you actually have to capture about employees, which are well beyond the typical scope of what was considered an ERP. And when you say flexible, I think there is contingency workers today, there are contract workers today, there are freelancers, so many different kinds of people in the system. And you should be able to work around these kinds of employment types too. Then new ways of locating people. You have NFC technologies, you have QR code technology, you have Google Maps. There are tiny little satellites way up there in the satellite orbits monitoring what people are doing. How do you use all this information to track people across a variety of activities they perform project-wise in an intelligent manner? What used to be hard-coded into the applications today, applications are actually able to provide the overlay on top of the software today, and so the combination of information is a lot easier than it used to be. And at the last level, being able to look at a statement of this kind. There is an invoice item, there is a billing basis, there is the integration with payroll, there is a rate card, and whether it's a flat fee or it's a one-time fee, whatever it is, you're able to link all this information together and not run disparate processes for each of the key processes within your organization. And I think that's where the key win is. And there are structural problems here. If you happen to be staffing for IT industry, everything is project-based, everything is based upon the projection of your clients, things like that. The granularity of information is far better. But if you're signing different SLAs with different clients, then you have a problem. Because this particular century is all about economics of convergence, right? The more you're able to get customers into one common SLA, the better off your profitability will be. Easier said than done. I know what you're saying, but that's what it is. At the extent to which you're able to structure, and this is my reference to the paper at the beginning of the presentation, there has to be a structure before software can fold itself around the requirement. If there is no structure, if you're signing different SLAs with different people, then the traceability becomes a lot more difficult, and delivering on that problem becomes more difficult. So essentially, we can put the problems into three boxes. Problems that software is not going to touch, which is what we talked about: apprentices, their growth, their costs 5 years from now. Problems that can be solved by consultation. Your business leaders must be willing to standardize on SLAs in order to be able to improve the traceability across the IT system. For as long as they maintain the pressure for flexibility in SLAs, it will be difficult for you to do that, because configuration will almost become a constant affair. Cloud systems are there, they help you to configure, but it is still a journey away. And then the last part of it is where you already have these kinds of maturity available in the systems, and you're able to put it to work right away. So all three come together in solving problems. If you look at some case studies, I have three distinctive case studies out here out of the many opportunities. So the text is somehow not appearing in any of these. I don't know what's happened. Let me just do this and see. Yeah, there you can see it. So essentially what we are saying is the project services, staffing services, and in process services, three distinctive, the bell is rung for the lunch, so I guess I must move a little fast. But what we are saying out here is each of these are different processes. Bringing them together is a different situation, and the roles are eventually the same. There is a role for it for the process associate, for the managers, for various other administrators, HR and finance. All of